I I'm willing to bet Caleb Williams was the runner-up for the Davy O'Brien Award, and I'm willing to bet Max Duggan was probably runner-up at Max. I think these two have pushed out ahead because if we're really honest, most of the awards and most definitely the Heisman, these are November awards. These are November awards. Now, if we just slide the scale back to the guys that we're talking about, to the exception of Michael Penix, if you come back before into that first week in November and earlier, Hendon Hooker sitting in there, Blake Corum sitting in there, Bryce Young sitting in there, DTR is either in there or they're barking at him or he's barking at them at the doorway. All those guys were rocking and rolling. In November, two of those guys went down with injuries, Hooker and Corum. They didn't have bad games. Tennessee lost one more game, but they're still in the top 8, top 10. Corum's team is in position to go play for the national championship based on his efforts driving them through. Now, they just had a couple horses behind him that were also capable, and they stepped in too. But he's out. Ankle injury took him out of the Heisman, but he already ran for 17-some hundred yards, and he already helped with all those wins. He's no longer worthy of going to New York. How is that possible? Hooker, there was no brighter star in college football for a 6-week stretch than Hendon Hooker. Most dangerous offense anybody could possibly see. They knock out the Roman army. And en route to his, seemingly putting them in the top 4 and him getting on into the Heisman race, tears his ACL out. It's a November award, and we got to wrap our minds around that. And I mean, and that's to the detriment of the entire season. Only guy really outside of that November talk is Michael Penix, who, call it West Coast biased or whatever, upcoming program that we don't really talk about in a Washington, monster games. He's had 4 or 5 games this year with 400 yards passing, knocked out some big time top ranked opponents, still having big games, but Washington's just kind of on the outside. But I do want to circle around to your point with Bryce Young. Jameis Winston won the Heisman and came back to college. He won it as a freshman, and he arguably had a better sophomore year than he had a freshman year, but the fatigue, they were already ready to look to the next guy. It happened to be Mariota, put their numbers against each other. Both kids played against each other in the Rose Bowl. Heisman people were like, Jameis, you got one. We're going with Bryce. Manziel won one his redshirt freshman year. Second year, redshirt sophomore year, his numbers were better. And completions were up. Percentage was up. Interceptions were down. His efficiency from the pocket was even better. He was a better player, better performer. Fatigued with Manziel. You got yours. Who else is next? Bryce was not just coming up against himself, but I honestly think they don't want to crown a guy 2 times because of, just the historic nature of it. It's only happened one time. It's only happened one time. So then if you just take the Heisman piece out, you're right. Bryce Young is the 5th bet, has his team 5th. And both times that they lost, when he left the field, they were winning. Yep. If you just strip it all the way back down to that, on a reduced Alabama team, this is a Roman army missing a whole lot of their artillery. Every time he left the field this year for Alabama, they were winning. Tennessee ended it on a field goal. LSU won it on a 2-point conversion. But he put them in position to win and was winning. So in my opinion, Bryce Young should also be there. But Alabama, a little bit maligned up against their own expectation, our expectations of them. So they're out. And Stroud, I'm exhausted with how much does Ohio State honestly have to pay for getting beat up by Michigan? They showed themselves to be the most complete team all season long. They won every game by double digits. CJ Stroud, I think he was in New York last year, wasn't he, Trevor?
Yeah, I think so.
Played just great ball, complete ball. And it wasn't always rock star type ball. And Ohio State had been slowed sometimes, didn't have their best player in Smith and Jigba, have plenty of five-star guys to go. But I felt he steered the ship, and they're in the playoffs. But he's got to pay for that. Team's got to pay for that. We'll get a chance to see these guys kind of resurrect all that stuff. But to me, Blake Corum from Michigan should absolutely be in New York. Blake Corum, like, get real. This dude was unstoppable. Carrying, and they, with no passing game. Now, Michigan turned around and showed themselves to have one. They've been working on it in the lab, and they unveiled it for Ohio State. But who do you think the engine was? Weeks 1 through 10, 1 through 11. He hurts himself, and you don't put this man in New York?
Yeah.
Shame on you, Heisman.
Agreed. And that's where we've talked about this a lot with the college football playoff committee. What's the rubric, right? Goes to the Heisman as well. What's the rubric? Is if we were to eliminate all noise, all media, and we just turned on the tape, who would actually go to New York, right? Turn up, put on your headphones, turn off the sound. I don't want to hear the commentators. I don't want to be on Twitter. I don't want to do any of that. Turn on the tape, who's the most beneficial player to their team and who played the best football from start to finish. And I'll tell you this. There's a guy in Stetson Bennett that I think, even me personally, I'm like, I don't think he should win the Heisman. But why not is the question. Why wouldn't he win the Heisman, right? Is it because he's not flashy? Is it because he doesn't have the arm strength? Caleb Williams? I mean, the guy's led his team not only to a national championship last year, but he's turned around and he's leading this team on their way to potentially another one.
So here's how it answers.
What's wrong with him? What more could he do to go win the Heisman Trophy?
I don't think it's a him thing. I look at it as if all four teams walked out onto the field, they're all in their warm-ups, and you took Stetson, you brought Stroud, Duggan, and J.J. McCarthy, and you look at those four guys and you're like, listen, unfortunate circumstances, you four cannot play in the playoffs. Who would Vegas say would still win? Who would Vegas have as the winner?
Yeah. So you're saying that doesn't matter how good Stetson plays, because of where he plays, he's not going to have a shot?
I think, and I'm coming around to it. I'm coming around on it fast. Stetson Bennett, the mailman. I know you got a new name per your NIL rights, et cetera, et cetera. I will get up to your new nickname, but I'm coming around fast on Bennett. But I just think, by and large, the overall public looks at him a lot like he's the one driving in an army tank. Like, he's the one driving in an army tank. And he has the best defense, the probably arguably the best set of weapons sitting up there next to Ohio State. He is surrounded by the most weaponry. But yes, the public doesn't understand. Somebody has to steer it, drive it, engineer it, sync it all together, make decisions, timely decisions. He's been running the ball. If you've really been watching Georgia, he's been doing so much more. But I think on the face of it, individually talented, he's the fourth most talented quarterback coming into the playoffs. Now, talent is a portion, but the poise, maturity, timing, response, now that arguably he's the best of the four guys coming in. He's the most experienced. He's the best. So you got this weird look at him like, well, you can't really ever see him because he's sitting inside that tank. I don't know actually how good he is, but I mean, he knows this territory. He's been here, and, he's never hurt them. But I just think people think he just comes in on the highest floor.
So let me ask you this question then, and I'm playing naive here because I want to hear your answer. You mentioned that he drives a tank into the stadium, and so it's tough to overcome that. You could basically plug and play, maybe not anymore, but we talked about it a lot last year. Plug and play the quarterback position, they're still going to roll. Most people, any given Saturday. How is Bryce Young last year any different? Roman Army coming in that tank. Is it because he's a more flashy player?
Probably.
Or is he actually that much better of a player? You see what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
is it the flashy play throwing across your body, no look, Heisman moment that won it for him? Or are we just overlooking nowadays that Stetson Bennett drops back, takes a 3-step drop, hits his back foot, and puts the ball where it's supposed to go? Right? I mean, what are we looking at?
I see the flash term, and I'll convert that over to this. There are many plays in Bryce Young's season last year where, if not for his creativity, competitiveness, or his unique talent, the play would be dead. Yeah. To get out of a 3-man charge, sidestep one, sidestep the other one, just don't get grabbed by the third guy, turn, find somebody, make a completion, keep this 3rd and 8 down, 1st down, drive stays alive. The 2 drives against Auburn, and we've been singing about that for now over a year now. They needed to beat Auburn so they can solidify themselves in the SEC championship game last year. 2 90-yard drives where you have to throw the ball. We know you have to throw the ball. Okay, here we go. Here we go. And the poise, we got to watch. We've seen his special. Yep. So we've seen him have to kind of go out and put a cape on and get it done. We've never really seen Stetson Bennett have to do that. And again, I say it like that because I'm not saying you don't have that ability, Stetson Bennett. I'm not saying you do. We just don't see you get left to your own devices a whole lot. But Trevor, you're right. He does play on time. He does probably make an awful lot of checks that we don't see. I remember training Andrew Luck and asking Shaw, like, you've had him already for 3 years. Year 3 to year 1, he goes, well, everybody's going to see the highlights and the physicality and all that. But he goes, the biggest asset Andrew Luck brings to us is he mitigates damage. So you got all this edge pressure and all these guys walked up. He gets us out of a play that would not hurt us. They do get a jump on our tackles or whatever it is. He's either dirted it, thrown the ball out of bounds, got back up. He keeps us out of bad things. And he goes, that stuff never shows up on the highlights. He dropped back 400. Go ahead.
People that actually play football, that is, at least that was always told to me in a quarterback room, right?
Yep.
Mitigate damage.
Correct.
Your tackle gets beat, make a play.
Correct.
Get the ball in your playmaker's hands. Don't be the hero. And I think it's become a hero award. We're asking our quarterbacks to do so much nowadays as opposed to be a distributor of football. So which kind of brings me to my next point. There's 2 guys on this list that we mentioned that are not going to New York, and I think it's because that they both got hurt. One of them is a quarterback, and my question is this a quarterback award now exclusively? Or if Blake Corum doesn't get hurt, do you truly think he wins the Heisman Trophy? If he continues, they beat Ohio State. If he's a big contributor in that game and he's done what he's done, put up the numbers that he's put up, do you think that Blake Corum wins the Heisman Trophy over a Max Duggan, over a Caleb Williams, over any of the guys on this list?